Welcome to today's web conference, U.S. Azure Partner Community Call for March. I'd like to turn it over to your first presenter, Nick Johnson, National PTS for Microsoft. Nick, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for carving out an hour of your day to join us. We've got an absolutely packed agenda, and I'm very excited about the speakers that we've got lined up. So we'll get to those folks in just a minute. And we're actually going to have some polling questions. So if you stay tuned to what's happening on your screen, you'll see those in just a couple of minutes. But just a reminder, if this is your first time joining us as a part of the Azure Partner community here in the U.S., welcome. We're glad you found us. We actually have 4 ways you can join us, and those are on the screen here. We've got a newsletter. We've got some blogging that we're doing. We've got a Yammer group that we'd love to have you join us on and dialogue with us. And then, of course, we've got this call, and we do this call the same time every single month. So you're welcome to go out and hit those URLs and sign up to join us. And feel free to pass that along to your peers, your coworkers, anybody that you want to have join us as well. I often do get the question during these calls, are you going to post the slide decks? The slide deck is already posted. It's over on that Yammer page. I put it in the chat window that Kim mentioned just a minute ago. So down in the lower left-hand corner of your browser, if you hit that messages button, you'll see the link to that Yammer group, and you can download the slides. We'll also post a link to the recording as soon as we have it up later today or tomorrow, depending on how long it takes to get that going. As far as a community roundup, just want to highlight a few features that have been talked about, new things that have been talked about that I think are really relevant to you as partners. And these have come out probably in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully you had a chance to watch the SQL Server 2016 launch event. And you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with Azure? It's got a ton to do with Azure. The ability to have hybrid deployments, multi-petabyte scale, and things like that that'll grow into Azure. So if you have not yet seen this, there's a link on this slide. Go out and watch it. We've got a great keynote that comes with, it's got stuff from Satya Nadella, it's got stuff from Scott Guthrie, it's got stuff from several other key leaders here at Microsoft, so please go watch that. There's also a really good Q&A blog that I linked here to. This was actually captured from questions that were taken live during and after the event, and that's sort of a summary. So for you guys as partners, I'm anticipating that a lot of your customers are going to be asking those same questions, so that's really a good question, good blog to go out and reference. And then, of course, right in the middle of the slide there, we announced something huge. SQL Server 2016 on Linux. So there's a bunch of information that is talked about during that recording that you can go out and check that out. That's going to be coming and happening more over the next several months. Also in community news, we talked about this a bit last month, but wanted just to refresh it for you. Don't forget that the Azure Stack technical preview is available. If you haven't yet even seen Azure Stack, go out, hit that link, watch the intro video that Mark Rusinovich did. It's fantastic. It talks really about what we see as the future of hybrid cloud. We really are excited to be able to very soon offer customers the ability to run Azure in their data center, the Azure Fabric, controlling their hardware, as well as our normal public Azure cloud, and have a real hybrid experience between the two. For partners, it is going to be an amazing opportunity for you guys to build business. Now's the time to download it. Now's the time to get ready for it and prepare for it. Figure out what your offerings are going to be so that when it goes into full release later this year, you're going to be able to go out and sell it with your customers. In other news, if you work in the Azure Gov Cloud, if you have any public sector customers that you work with, there was a whole bunch of new features that went into GA in just the last couple of weeks. So here's a list of all those. I'm not going to read them all to you, but there's a link at the bottom that's got a post that the Azure Gov team put up with all the new information and links about all these GA features and some of the pilot programs they're doing with FedRAMP and things like that. So if you work in that Azure Gov space, good news is happening in your world really rapidly right now, so I encourage you to go spend some time there. Just on the general Azure public cloud, a few of the latest things I want to call out for you. This is certainly not all of them, but one is the Azure Hybrid Use benefit is now fully available. So if you're not familiar what that is if you have customers that have already paid for Windows Server licenses that they're using on premises, but they'd rather be using that license in Azure, they can now do that. And they can bring that license with them in a lot of cases, which allows them to spin up a virtual machine that costs much less, up to 41% less than they would pay if they just paid the full price for the virtual machine with the Windows license included on Azure. So that's a really, really good benefit for customers. I strongly encourage you to get to know that because that can really help sort of swing deals in your direction. So spend some time there. On the bottom of the slide, we've also got some references to SQL Server. StretchDB is in preview, so if you work in the SQL space, check that out. And then one of the latest features related to Azure Active Directory is that identity protection is now in preview. So if you work with Azure Active Directory and you want ways to do much stronger protection and control over those user identities, to monitor behaviors, implement certain actions when a behavior falls outside of the norm, identity protection is the thing that's going to help you do that. So I encourage you to go check that out as well. Very, very excited about this slide. Tons of traction on this in the last week, but we have announced a whole new batch of Cloud Platform University classes. For partners, these are free. And they are virtual. So they are multi-day events, and they are designed for the technical audience. And we've got 5 of them listed there. They will fill up. So once they're full, they're full. You can join a waiting list, but I can't guarantee anybody a seat. So if you have not signed up for any of these yet, the URL is on the bottom of this slide. Go sign up for it. Now, I said they're free. It will prompt you to put in a credit card number for a $50 no-show fee because we invest a tremendous amount of resources in making these happen. We do want to ensure people are going to be there. So if you aren't able to be there, you'll want to cancel so that you don't get charged that no-show fee. So that's what that's for. I put a red box around one that's super important to our topic today, which is Empower Enterprise Mobility. So there's a great course that's out there for that. I encourage you to sign up for one of those deliveries. Now, before I introduce our speaker and dive into our topic at hand, I would like to go ahead and ask Kim to come back on the line, and we've got some polling slides we'd like to walk through to kind of get a sense of where you folks are at today.
Thanks, Nick. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll put up the first poll. It will appear on the left-hand side of the screen. And the first poll is for Microsoft employees. What is your job role? Please select the appropriate response and click Submit. Thank you. And our second polling question, partners, what is your job role? Partners, rate your level of experience with Azure. And our final polling question. Does your company have an existing practice for, and please select that applies. And Nick, back to you.
All right, great. We'll bring those slides back up. And with that, I want to just kind of tee up. We actually had about a month ago, we asked you guys in a poll question, what are some of the key topics you want to see us address in this community? And the Enterprise Mobility Suite was actually one of the top 2 that was rated in there. And so we're very excited to bring to you today a couple of speakers who are going to talk about the Enterprise Mobility Suite in terms of the partner opportunity. What are some of the things that we're seeing success on out there today? How are we supporting you guys? So we're going to bring that to light here. This is part of a bigger effort that we're doing. So if you see that that blog entry that I put out there, I actually put a couple of blogs out there this week. There's going to be several more in the subsequent weeks. We started with some resources for you to help your sales and marketing folks. The next few blogs are going to actually focus on the technical folks, on what are the trainings available, how do we sort of help you navigate through, how do you build up your skill set around Enterprise Mobility Suite and all that makes it up. So invite you to track with us through that. Next month's community call, I'm going to give you a little preview here. We are actually going to bring on a speaker who's going to talk very specifically about tips and tricks for how to do Enterprise Mobility Suite demos and some of the tools that we're making available from Microsoft to make your life a whole lot easier there. So there's going to be quite a bit coming with that. With that, I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to invite my friend Nish on the phone. She's a senior PM who works with Enterprise Mobility Suite, and she's very passionate about it, so I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Nish.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks so much. Hey, everyone. As Nick introduced, I'm a senior PMM, and I'm the EMS scorecard lead within our marketing and sales operations organization. So happy to be here and talk about Enterprise Mobility Suite. So, you all know about Enterprise Mobility Suite, that it's a bundle of 4 components. So Azure Active Directory Premium, Intune, rights management, and then advanced threat analytics. And because it's a bundle, there's different ways to lead the solution in front of a customer. You could lead it with an Azure Active Directory Premium side of things, and you could talk about identity and lead with identity. You could talk about mobile device management and mobile application management and lead from an Intune side of things. You can talk about rights management and then lead with that. And then you can also talk about detection through behavioral analytics, through advanced threat analytics, and lead with that. Based on the success that we have seen, what we do recommend is leading with identity and then bring in all the other components. And that's important because we don't want the customers to compare us with point solutions and then lose the value of EMS. The key to EMS value is you lead with identity and then bring in all the other components and talk about the integration and the simplicity of the solution that doesn't require you to talk about, that doesn't require the customer to integrate various solutions and spend a ton of money. So I just wanted to set that context. So lead with identity and then bring in the other components. And how do you drive that identity message? The key to driving that identity message is through talking about identity-driven security, because as you guys all know, security is top of mind for every single customer. You looked at the agenda slide, which is, secure and manage identities, apps, and data, and that talks about the full EMS suite with a focus on, security. And specifically in this presentation, I would like to focus on securing and managing identities. So as you all know, cyber threats is a CEO level issue right now. And cybersecurity, again, is top of mind for not just the CIO, CISO, but also the CEO, according to a McKinsey survey, which is not a surprise, which should not be a surprise for you guys. And, if you look at the stats, I won't repeat all of them, but like 77 million user accounts have been stolen. And look at the number of credit cards that have been stolen. And 1.8 successful attacks experienced every week, and that's a scary number. And that basically means every week when you look at news, almost 2 companies are going to be breached. And let's talk about why is this happening, and what what's the paradigm, what's the security paradigm and how it is changing. And so if you look at the old paradigm, the solution for security is build thicker walls. Surround your king or your data and everything with as thick castle walls, firewalls as possible with DMZ, with strong firewalls and all that, and strengthen it more and more. And that was the old paradigm. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with the new way of work, which is, every employee wants to have multiple devices. Every employee accesses their company corporate data from, their own personal device and their home office, whatnot. And they also access cloud applications. Some cloud applications are sanctioned by IT, some are not. And unfortunately, because cloud is not within their firewall, now the castle, the castle and the firewall paradigm doesn't hold anymore. And so the new security paradigm is basically like your identity is the new firewall. You have to protect your end user's identity really, really well. And then the devices sort of become the new perimeter. And then the last one is you cannot assume that you haven't been breached until you get signs. That's the old paradigm. The new paradigm is the posture, security posture that you have to take is that you are in the middle of a breach, and you have to keep looking at signs and metrics that give you more information. And so this is the new security paradigm that we want to reinforce. And for that, the first thing that I want to talk about is identity is the new firewall. So let's talk about identity and how do you manage identities and how do you secure identities. And I do want to give a couple more statistics, and this is a case study, and I won't name the customer, name the company, but it's in the retailing company. And if you look at the loss due to a breach, the metrics are staggering. 56 million credit cards were compromised in a single breach, and then 50 lawsuits were filed. 13 million was the amount that the company had to reimburse its customers for losses. $161 million booked in pre-tax breach-related expenses. So a huge, staggering loss. And how did the breach happen? If you look at the anatomy of this particular breach, what you will see is that the hackers got hold of a third-party vendor credentials, which was not an admin credential. They leveraged that vendor credential to get access to an admin credential. And then once they got the admin credential, they were there in the system for literally like 5 months. And that's 150 days before even, before discovery. And leveraging that admin credentials, they installed malware on the POS systems that would basically send the hackers the credit card and other information. And this company specifically did have an intrusion detection system, but there were so many false positives that they didn't discover this. So, now let us look at, is this an anomaly or an exception? No, it is not. It's it's one of the typical examples of a breach attack. And let me elaborate what I mean. So a typical breaches, and when we do the analysis across breaches, what you find is that, so there's the green line green portion of the rectangle that you see here. It's basically a lot of prep work that's done, and that, at the end of the green line is when the first workstation is compromised. That is, the first identity is compromised, hacked or in different ways. And that's not an admin workstation, not an admin identity. And then within 24 to 48 hours, within that yellow line or yellow box, that's when the hackers leveraged that first workstation identity to get hold and get hold of an admin identity. So, and typically what we've seen is 24 to 48 hours, the admin identity is compromised, and then they are the king of the network. They reside within the network for 11 to 14 months, and the average we have heard is 201 days. That's how many days the attacker spends within the network undetected. And then at the end of the red box, after 14 months or 11 months, depending on whatever timeline, whatever the timeline is, an attack is discovered. And this is the anatomy of a breach. Now let's talk about how and what we can do. And in order to stop this, identity protection and identity is the key thing. And when you look at, and however, let's contrast this with the current reality today from an identity perspective, right? You have tons of devices. Every user has like 3.5 devices based on a statistic that we know. And they have access to, many cloud applications. And some companies might say, hey, no, we restrict all cloud applications. But do they really know how many shadow SaaS applications are running? They probably haven't done that analysis, and we'll talk later and we can help. I'll show you another way how we can help discover the cloud applications that are running. But effectively, every company with or without IT's knowledge has many cloud applications running. And then you have many devices across multiple platforms, whether that's iOS, Android, or Windows running. And then you have some are managed, some are BYOD unmanaged devices. And then you add in the complexity of, hey, there's some line of business applications running too on premises. And so every user has multiple usernames and passwords to log in across these SaaS applications and across the line of business applications. And that's a huge complex thing, and not just from an end user perspective, but also IT admin, because now they have to worry about provisioning and deprovisioning across multiple, SaaS applications and on-premises apps. With Active Directory Premium, there is one single identity now across all these cloud applications, whether it's Microsoft cloud applications or third-party cloud applications. Salesforce, Box, Dropbox, Workday, Concur, all these are captured. Not just these, there are about 2,500 plus SaaS apps that we authenticate against. So from an end user perspective, there's only one username, one password that they have to remember to access any of the 2,500 plus SaaS applications. From an IT perspective, the beautiful thing is that they can provision and deprovision very easily. Imagine a scenario when there's a multitude of temporary workers. They can easily provision those users for any of these 2,500 applications based on dynamic work groups, and then they can deprovision them very quickly. And compare and contrast this with, with what companies do today where they don't have Azure Active Directory Premium. The other advantages of this is that there is a strong authentication to this. And that means a strong multi-factor authentication, conditional access, and I'll talk about that. And then app level protection, right? So, we protect the data within the apps based on end user identity. And also, because there's a single username, single password, it makes it easier to reduce breaches. And again, the Microsoft Azure Active Directory connects with your cloud, all the applications, and the on-premises as well. So, how do you strongly authenticate your identity? Multi-factor authentication, and so multi-factor authentication, as you know, is basically adding on multiple different second and third authentication vehicles. to make sure that the person requesting is the owner of that identity and that the identity is not secure. So let's go back to the company that was hacked. If the vendor credentials that were hacked, for example, if the hacker was in any other country, the Azure Active Directory Premium infrastructure would have detected that, hey, this user is accessing from a remote location, and would have flagged that particular login with a multi-factor authentication. It could be a phone call, it could be an app-based authentication. And then the hacker would not have had access to, hopefully, the mobile phone or the app for the user. And from a security perspective, Azure MFA is one of the most trusted engines in which processes billions of authentications every week. And Microsoft does, invest a huge amount, I'm talking billions of dollars, in making sure that this MFA engine and other engines are security, are secure and proof. And we have red and attack teams and defense teams continuously testing it. And we can talk about, what all the things that we do. But net, it's a very secure engine. And then there's about 4.5 billion organizations that use Azure Active Directory today. And again, we process up to 18 billion authentications every single week. And so, if we had multi-factor authentication, that would have prevented the hacking of the vendor credentials in the previous scenario that we talked about. And we also have complementing security reports that basically show when a user is logging in, for example, from multiple countries within a single day. So if I'm a user and I'm logging in from US and I'm also logging in from Russia or Ukraine in a single day, that's a big flag. And then so the Azure Active Directory Premium actually shows you a flag of all those users. And that's a big risk factor for the admins to take a look into. What we also have is, we talked about one password to sign into all applications, whether that's on-premises and device choice, and we have about 2,500 plus pre-integrated SaaS applications. And with the majority of them, we have provisioning and deprovisioning, and based on dynamic access groups, which is a huge benefit for IT admins. And then on top of that, the huge benefit is that self-service password reset, which can take, which costs about, on average, we've heard about $20 per user. That goes away because now the end user can actually go to a portal, select, do self-service password resets themselves, and they don't have to bug their manager or call help desk and do different sort of things. And the other piece of identity-driven security is that whenever the user accesses corporate data, whether that be internal on-premises corporate data or cloud corporate data, the engine checks for different attributes. Make sure that, hey, the user attributes from a user identity, group membership, authentication are all valid and eligible in order to access corporate data. And similarly, whether the devices are domain joined or compliant. So for example, there's a common customer situation is that they want to restrict Office 365 email data being downloaded into their grandma's machine, for example. Like people go to their grandma's place and then open their Outlook web access, and sometimes they don't, they forget to close, or sometimes there's a possibility that the hackers could access that machine to log into the Outlook web access. And those types of situations are prevented with a single, within the Intune portal, with a single click through conditional access. And Azure Active Directory along with Intune ensures that those devices that are domain joined or compliant are only eligible to access the corporate data. And again, the identity piece is key, and then we bring in the other components. And again, this talks to the piece that, hey, lead with identity and then bring in all the other components. And the engine could, do different things. It could either allow or block, or if there's a little bit of doubt, it could enforce MFA. I'll skip this. We've talked about this, and the key thing that I want to mention is, in addition to enforcing condition-based access, we also have, let's say, if a user's identity is stolen, we do have behavioral analytics based red flag raising type of a thing. We also have cloud app discovery, which is basically a tool that the IT would run to discover all the cloud apps that are being run in the organizations, which detect both the IT sanction as well as non-IT sanctioned cloud apps, which is a very useful thing. If the company wants to also run the Microsoft Identity Manager, privileged identity management is available. And if the identity is lost, then we have within EMS an advanced threat analytics solution that basically is a behavioral analytics based engine that integrates with your Active Directory and SIEM engines that might exist in a company, and then it will monitor behaviors to make sure that the behavior, whenever the behavior becomes from normal to abnormal, it detects it and raises red flags. And it also does an automatic machine learning to search for known attacks and issues. And given the billions of dollars that Microsoft is putting in security, we have a big team that looks at and consistently captures in the database what are the existing attacks. And so the ATA scans for those. And then finally, it reduces the amount of false positives as much as possible based on the known security attacks and behavioral analytics. The other piece of this that I want to quickly mention is, if the company wants to take advantage of their on-premises privileged access management, they can do so. And the rights to it is included within EMS. And so what that basically summarizes is, you don't have permanent admins. You just have temporary admins, just-in-time temporary admins, who, when they need the admin privileges, they become a super user, and then they sort of lose their super user privilege. And this is another big component. Now, let's bring everything together and see how we can contain a breach or prevent a breach with EMS. So first, in the green space, where the first, at the end of which, the first vendor credential was hacked, or a non-admin credential was hacked, right? MFA, the multi-factor authentication and security report, significantly reduce the risk of identity theft, and that's a really big thing. Let's say, worst case, the hacker did have access to their mobile phone or a mobile application, and they were able to do a second factor, which is very rare, but still, even if they're able to do that, when the vendor credential accesses, tries to secure admin privilege, the advanced threat analytics lets you know immediately. It raises a big flag. And then the admins are not permanent admins, they're just in time. So thereby definitely extending the time and preventing the admin credential hack. And so effectively, this prevents a breach. So again, guys, just to summarize, we've taken a case study and then we've talked through how EMS prevents the breach. And then the key message is, lead with identity-driven security. And once the customer is bought into that, bring in the value prop of the other components and the integration and simplicity, and land the EMS value prop. With that, I will hand it off to Manvir, and Manveer, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Nish. Hopefully my audio is coming in okay.
You sound great.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So I think, Nish, thank you so much. That's a perfect way to kind of, I think, for the segue, right? So hopefully you kind of got a sense of, looking at the polling questions here, and then a lot of you already have an enterprise mobility practice. There are some that I think are dabbling or possibly looking down to the space. So really, I think what I want to use the remaining of the time that we have is, one, to kind of showcase and make sure that, you're looking at your practice in the right way. But obviously what I'm going to be sharing with you is just based off of feedback and discussions and what we've seen with some of our successful partners that have been able to build out thriving enterprise mobility practices. And then really kind of like what's the value for the partner, right? And really trying to address, the three fundamental questions. Is this going to help solve your customers' problems, which Nish has already, I think, highlighted very well with the evidence and the case study that she walked through? And is it an easy practice for you to, start up? And then as well as, is it something you can make money off of? So hopefully that's something we could address. If there's any questions that come along through the session here or the remaining of the session, please let me know. But, not going to spend too much time here on the security and what the trends are happening, but really to sum up what Nish was providing and talked about, what from a customer perspective, what Microsoft's bringing to the table is really how do we address the customer needs and what they're requiring in their day-to-day, work life, especially as they're looking at bringing secure productivity into their workspaces and making sure their people are able to do the work that they need to go do while not having to worry about the vulnerabilities that are there. It's really about access from many devices, right? So it's no longer about your, as Nish mentioned, the average number is 3 devices that a person carries around. So whether it's your PC, whether it's your phone, whether it's your other phone, or whether if it's your tablet, the fact that we could be able to address the multiple device scenarios and the fact that we're able to bring in productivity management and we're able to support multiple applications, thousands of SaaS apps through Azure Active Directory Premium, it just shows that Microsoft, the way that we've thought about our enterprise mobility offering is to be able to be very pointed in how we're addressing the different concerns that customers are bringing to us. And then this is really, as you think about from your engagement with customers, how do you go about and making sure you're finding that pain point and then being able to tie in the relevant solution that's going to be able to address that and then showcase the bigger picture of, well, there's also other things you could be doing to be able to address your security needs within your organization as well. So to sum up kind of the whole enterprise mobility conversation, and this is more, I believe, for the folks that aren't in the space today, it's, as Nish mentioned, there's 4 buckets or 4 products that make up our enterprise mobility suite. But as you think about the overall enterprise mobility management story or the offerings that Microsoft brings to the table, it's, as of today, it's 5 different products. There's a 5th one that's being made available in April, and we're obviously looking for additional integrations with some of the with one of the other acquisitions that we've made last year as well. So it's really about how do you protect the identity, the device, the data, add in that added layer of behavioral-based analytics on threat detection with the ATA, and then you also have the side pillar, which is Azure Remote App, which is the application virtualization and the security that's around virtualizing an application or the line of business application for your customer. And then the last one that I was saying that's launching in April is our cloud app security, which we'll be able to start showcasing more information and sharing more of that for you, in the next couple of weeks as well. But so if you ever think about like what's Microsoft's vision, the end-to-end story, this is kind of the best and fundamental way to be able to see what that vision is from our side. As we look at the overall success that we had in year 1, so this is year 2 that we're getting ready to complete of the Enterprise Mobility Suite being in market, we had a fundamental, it was a blockbuster success, I would call it. I don't know if others would say that, but I would definitely call that, that we had 13,000 customers by the end of year 1. We're seeing doubling our growth already for this year as far as revenue attainment goes year over year. And then we actually had a monumental year last in March, so 1 year as of this month, where we launched EMS in Open, Select, and CSP. So making it available to every single partner type, regardless of the licensing model that you're transacting with. So for those of you that are dabbling with these, that are in the CSP or the EMS space today, just know that you have all these options if you didn't know that already. And for those that are looking to build a practice, This may be a route to market that you're already working in. So whether you're in, the enterprise space and you're the EA attached type of motion, or if you're building your cloud solution provider practice, that the fact that EMS is, now available across the board is just pretty much finding the best option for you and just going in that route. So as we look at, and one thing that I always that I've heard time and time again, in fact, this was brought up at the PAC yesterday as well, is that when we look at our competitors, they tend to get very specific in what they're able to do, and in some cases, they definitely beat out as far as the feature capabilities and a feature-to-feature battle. But what they lack is the fact that they're not present across the full vision. So what happens is that customers and even partners, you're forced to be able to engage with multiple vendors to be able to get the holistic end-to-end story, meaning you're dealing with multiple, from a customer perspective, multiple support, multiple licensing models, multiple software updates, and multiple, just the whole engagement of having different suppliers and vendors that you have to deal with, and the same thing from the partner side. And that's really core to Microsoft's offering, is the fact that we are literally considered a leader in the client management tools. Being the first year in the Enterprise Mobility Suite, being in market, we were classified as a visionary for both the Enterprise Mobility Management Suites and Identity and Access. We're very eager to see what the results are going to be this June when Gartner publishes his updated Magic Quadrant, and based on the momentum we're seeing, I think that's going to be a really good upward trajectory that we expect to see as far as the classifications go. And then, so what this means for you as you talk about this to your customers is the fact that, one, we're aggressively invested here. We're showing progress. The industry is finding, that we're doing the right things to be able to meet customer needs. And then at the same time, it's the fact that we're the holistic end-to-end story that's there. And it's not our own thinking, right? We have customers that are adopting this on a regular basis. Like I mentioned, 13,000 customers in year one alone. We're well over the 17,000 mark as of a couple of months ago. And then, all right, so there is a question that came up here. Is remote app of EMS part of EMS, or are they saying it's complements it? So today, remote app is not part of the EMS license. So EMS has a suite, so Enterprise Mobility Suite. It's made up of the 4 pillars. Remote app stands on its own, so it is a different license that you would have to purchase. Obviously, Microsoft, we always assess our different SKUs and offerings that we bring to the table, and as the needs change, we'll be adjusting the SKUs as well. But to get back to the customer momentum, this just showcases, and we have the evidence that we're looking to publish on a regular basis. So this is, what we have today of some of the marquee references that we're able to share out, and then obviously there's a lot more coming down the pipe as well that we're working on. So really to kind of, to highlight why, for those of you that are with Microsoft and other vendors or looking to build your practice, right? So from the enterprise mobility space specifically, it's all about just the market leader status, what we're doing kind of, across the board from the technology, the investments that we're making. If you heard Satya's announcement a couple of weeks ago, security is a big component for us. So it's, the billions of dollars or the $1 billion that we're investing in this space. The fact that we are a single vendor that brings in a unified solution across the board, and as I mentioned, is all the way from the actual device, the identity, to the data, and then that predictive security layer that's added on top. And the fact that this is really the partner-centric ecosystem model that we have. One thing I'll call out, if you're getting into the EMS space, the pace at which the business is growing is surpassing the pace at which the partner ecosystem that's supporting this business significantly. We have an actual capacity gap issue where we need more partners to not only be able to help drive the sales motion, but more on the services side as far as the deployment and driving customers to active usage. So there's a mix of the opportunity that's there for you, which we'll talk about in another slide here. So won't go into the solving the enterprise mobility challenges because Nish did a phenomenal job here. But here's a summary of kind of the 3 bullet points that each of the different topics will address. And then, there's more training available across the board on each one of those. I think this is going to be a critical one for the partner economics. And I will stress this point, on this, that this is purely based off of feedback from our early adopter partners that were in this space when, EMS launched after year 1. We're obviously working on the refresh of this to make sure it's relevant now that we have a lot more partners in the space. But then obviously you want to apply this and, adjust it to based on the business and the segment that you're catering to. So if you're working with the Microsoft classification of corporate accounts customers, this may not be translated or translate out as accurately as if, say, you were working with an enterprise partner, or if you're in the the medium business space. So take this for what it is, in the sense that this is more intended based off of the larger customer feedback that we got on partners that were engaging with those customers. But there's really two core areas that I would suggest that partners, and I would imagine everybody on the call here today is already doing some form of project services, right? So the systems integration and making sure the customers set up properly and getting the usage of the services done properly. And then the latter part, which is the managed services. The unique IP, I think we're still a little early here in the space for enterprise mobility, though we are starting to see a lot of some things emerging in the unique IP space, specifically around security as a service. So for those partners that are becoming managed service security providers, so the MSSPs, so that's from a Microsoft lens, an emerging space. But definitely there's a viable opportunity in our vision for the project services that are there. And really it's about what are you doing from being able to deploy the customer and then getting that customer to start utilizing and actually realizing the benefits of the service that they purchased. And that, if you look at the overall opportunity, and just like I said, there's a massive growth as far as the resale motion goes, and now there's a whole motion that we have in place of going back to all those customers and saying, hey, you bought this technology, let's make sure you realize the potential and get the return on your investments to start using the service. So finding the partners that are able to do the deployments, whether you're looking at it from a mobile device and application integration or management, right? Or if you're going all the way down to the upper part, which is the desktop virtualization, which definitely requires about the same amount of time as the first, but then there, because it's more complex, there's the opportunity to charge more and actually get better margins, or the same amount of margins, but charging more for your customers on that. And over, as you look at it, as the customer gets into the, the deployment phase, it's all about the actual, the managed services that you're providing on top. And we're starting to see a blend as far as the managed services / consulting assessments that are happening on an ongoing basis. So one of the things that we're hearing from partners is really along the lines of, hey, we're helping you do the 24 or there's a typo there. It should be 24 by 7. I wish there was 27 hours in a day. But 24 by 7 monitoring. But at the same time, like, let's make sure, the identity space, like, if you're noticing breaches, like, what can we do to rectify that and make sure that those aren't happening? Or if you're noticing, the lag or there's a time delay as far as getting up your identity set up or making sure the provisioning is all done, how do we make sure that we're optimizing the efficiency and getting that done faster? So we're finding partners are actually going back and doing consulting services after the customer's already deployed and now they're using the service. And that's another opportunity to be able to generate revenue beyond what you're doing from the integration and the managed services, which is, the support, monitoring, setting security policies, and so forth. And what I've done is actually included in this deck in the appendices. So I believe this is available for download, right, Nick?
Yes, this is available. I posted the link in the chat window.
Okay, perfect. So it's available, and what you'll notice in the appendix is going to be, the appendices is going to be, examples of what I provided, the types of services that are available for you to go and deploy and provide to your customer. For each of the different three of the four products that make up EMS today, and obviously we're looking to bring in the advanced analytics scenarios and kind of what the services are available that you could bring to the table for your customers as well. But look at that and look at, all right, how are you charging it, your customers today per hour or what have you for similar line items across other products, whether it's Azure or Office 365, and then the ability to be able to do the same thing with Enterprise Mobility Suite. And for those of you that are saying, well, what's the resale motion or how do I drive this? In our vision, it's really along three key scenarios that you could go back and engage in an enterprise mobility opportunity with your customers. The first is going to be the very common one that you think you hear from a lot of product teams across Microsoft is the Office 365 attach motion. So it's not a upsell motion, but it's the attach motion that we're driving more so. So if you have an opportunity where you're pushing Office 365, and I believe some of you, based on the polling questions, have that today, make sure you're bringing in that security conversation with the productivity conversation at the same time. So secure productivity, right? In some cases, you'll have an overlap of the audience that you're going to talk to. In most cases, you'll have to address the CISO on one side, and you may have to address the CIO or the CFO on both ends, right? So that's scenario number one. The second scenario is going to be looking at the net new customer base. And this is really going to be along the lines of those customers, whether it's an Azure customer, someone who you're engaging with on the Azure side, or it's not a customer for you today, but they're a compete migration opportunity. And we're actually putting some investments in place for the net new customers to Microsoft in the EMS space for compete wins, and that's definitely an opportunity for you to go and leverage, and we're actually looking for more and more partners that are able to do the rip and replace as well. So if you have that expertise, definitely let us know, because all of our field teams are aggressively looking to find more partners that are able to have that conversation and help deliver that service to the customer as well. And the last opportunity that I'll say is from a revenue generating perspective is really looking at the go back motion. Like I said, there's thousands of customers that have EMS today, and many of those customers actually need to start deploying the service as well as using the service. So this really becomes an opportunity to tone in on that services business, or that services arm within your business, to be able to generate revenue there and drive long-term engagement. And what I'll say about the services opportunity, regardless of the customer that you're engaging in, most likely, and this is what we're seeing and we're hearing, that the customer is going to want to go in with a single solution. Like, I want my devices managed, or I want my identity, set up and secured. Once you get that first traction in, it's automatically, you should be starting the next conversation of like, hey, there's these other components of the license or the suite or the solution that you bought. How do we work to get that set up and making sure that you're realizing the full benefit? So eventually you could turn this into a multi-month or a year-long engagement as you go to get the different pillars or the different services within EMS lit up within your customer's environment. So maybe you're starting with identity and devices together at one time. Then you follow it up with RMS, and then eventually you follow it up with advanced threat analytics, right? But there is that opportunity to make sure that, similar to some of the other businesses at Microsoft, that they're not just using it as a point solution offering and they bought it because it was the cheapest option, but they're using the full potential of all the services that are available there. And we're realizing and seeing the partners that are able to have that holistic end-to-end success on driving implementation and usage are actually the ones that are getting that sticky engagement with that customer for ongoing services and consulting work as well. So here are a few partner success stories. We're obviously always looking for more partner success stories, and I invite you, if you have your own success story or customer evidence opportunity, that you come back and actually submit your nomination on our partner portal, which I'll show here in a few seconds. But the idea is that we are trying to go more and more into the idea of showing the partner and the customer and the Microsoft success story holistically across the board. And we actually recently launched a service where we're now showcasing some of these partners on our main enterprise mobility partner or customer portal or the website as a way to be able to go and buy and engage for services with customers. So check out, I believe it's the pricing section within the EMS website, and you'll see that we feature 3 partners there, and we're looking to be able to do a monthly rotation with new partners as long as we could get more evidence published with those partners as well. So I think I'm trying to make, I know I'm cramming in a lot here, but what I'll advise all of you to do is, if there's one thing that I'm, as a next step and an action that I would leave you with, is just, if this is a space you're interested in, or if you're already in this space and you're like, what are all the resources? I know Nick mentioned that we're going to have a session on the demos. He's developing the blog post and all the resources that are available. I just ask you to take a look at this website that we have. It is really a centralized experience for all partners to be able to get the resources that they need to be able to start building their practice, as well as going through the different stages of a sales cycle, whether it's pre-sale support or post-sales, or what happens after the customer has been sold and deployed. So aka.ms/EMS partner, and there'll be 2 videos there that I would highly advise for those of you that are not in the space today. That one is going to be a 40-minute YouTube video that's a full, thorough overview with demos and high level of want to share it with some other folks within your teams that Brad Anderson, one of our CVPs, delivered at Safeco Field, and also then taking a look at the other resources that we have available, as far as there's a web series that we have ongoing right now for the sales and marketing level 100 and 200, and I know, Nick, you're going to talk about this in your upcoming blog post, but the technical deep dive on demand training that we have on actually deploying EMS, and that's an evergreen training that you could actually access on Partner University today. which is V1, and we're already working on V2, which will add in a few additional scenarios as well as advanced threat analytics and the cloud app security offering. So with that, hopefully I was able to convey that there is a massive opportunity for partners to get into the space. If you're in the space, making sure you're doubling down on the business here, just to kind of share. And you may have heard this before, but this is our fastest product to possibly reach $1 billion that we've introduced into the marketplace. So we've been in market for 2 years now. We'll be starting our 3rd year very soon, and then our goal is to be able to break that threshold pretty much this year. In the next coming year. So with that, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the IM window, and I believe Nish and I will be online for the remaining 5 minutes to address Q&A. Nick, back to you.
Great, Manveer. Thank you. Nish, thank you. Folks, this was fantastic content. I hope you can see the opportunity here in EMS, and we really want to equip you and do a really good job of equipping you. So like Manveer said, there's that link there, aka.ms, EMS partner. There's a tremendous amount of resources out there that you should check out. We are going to unpack some of those in the blog in the weeks ahead, so spend some time there. And in just a minute, we're going to actually post a survey for the call. Let us know specifically in the comment section, what do you need to know about EMS to help you accelerate your business there? Because we can include that in future calls, future resources that we make available to you. So let us know via that survey, how can we help you out. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'm going to invite you to sign up for next month's call. A lot of chatter in the chat window today that said, hey, how do we demo this stuff? What are the tools? We're going to show you that. So if you already have access to those, great. If you haven't seen those before, you want to come and learn that, we're going to post that in the weeks ahead. Also, be sure to follow the blog. We've got a lot of blog posts coming up to help you build your EMS business. So with that, Kim, I'm going to invite you to close us out with the survey, and thank you, everybody, for your time today.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Ladies and gentlemen, your feedback is important. We hope that you found today's information helpful. Please take a few minutes to let us know by completing a short survey. Please click on the messages button to find the link to the survey. And you can access the web conference recording via a link that will be delivered within 72 hours post-conference. And I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters, Nick, Nish, and Manveer. This concludes today's web conference. You may now